Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants.
Welcome back, brethren, to the Fort Worth Masonic podcast. Thank you all for tuning in once again, and we appreciate all of y'all for supporting us throughout the length of the podcast career. My name is Gabe, and I am the Worshipful Master of Fort Worth Lodge.
I am Billy Hamilton. I am the current Tyler and past master of Fort Worth 148.
And with us, we have returning to the podcast, our hometown hero, Rhit Talks.
Man, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back, man. And I've been churning them out. I did one last night with some guys from the East Coast. That's going to be a great episode coming out in a week or so. Did an Oye's podcast that I laid down today as well. It's on like Donkey Kong.
It has been a while since it's been just the three of us. So
this is true.
It has been.
Yeah.
Tear.
Bringing it back old school.
Bringing it back old school.
You know, Rhit had a commitment that was keeping him very busy during last Grand Lodge Masonic year. Rhit, do you want to tell us what you were up to, what you were doing, and that kept you away from our beautiful company for so long?
Man, I was having a blast.
Oh, yes, you were. And we were too.
So I had the distinct honor and privilege of serving as Grand Orator for the Grand Lodge of Texas. And man, let me tell you what, if there's a position, you don't have any of the responsibility that the Grand Master has or any of those elected trustees, but you get to tag along and even speak at these, awesome events, stuff you learned about in the history books at school that, just for me as a, fifth generation Texan is just a huge part of my life. So to actually take part and honor some of these ceremonies that I was able to, man, what an awesome honor. Still one of the highlights of my Masonic career, undoubtedly. So, that it's funny because I was kind of reflecting on how I would go over this in the podcast. The most vivid memory of the whole process, it was being asked. It's so funny because I can go back to that memory clear as day. You know how memories get murky and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. kind of muddy. Mm-hmm. The moment that I was asked is clear as day. It's like a fresh bell ring still in my mind. Because Right Worshipful Curry, he pulled me aside and he was like, hey, you mind being Grand Orator for me? It's just real nonchalant. At a stated meeting, we were getting ready to eat and I about fell over. I'm looking around like, me? It's like, Ken, are you sure you know who you're asking here? But I, of course, immediately, said I would be my honor for sure. I had to check with the boss, so I didn't commit immediately, but my wife was totally on board. So I snatched that up as quick as I could. And keeping that a secret for a year and a half, man, that's tough, especially, from you guys, because he told me not to tell anybody, mm-hmm. And I don't think I told you guys till about a month or so before it was all going to happen. It's so hard keeping that a secret.
I will neither confirm nor deny the particular date or time that you told me, just so that you don't get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't recall when it was. It must have been after.
Yeah. Surely Rhit would never have told people before he was supposed to.
Man, and it's crazy because that was, I don't even remember now because it's such a blur. That was pre-COVID though, that when I was asked. So I still
would have been, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a short-haired, upstanding young Mason, Then
before you turned into this long-haired hippie.
Exactly, or as Ken would call me during his year, Moses, He gave me so much heck about that long hair. It's like, well, when I asked him, he had short hair.
That's entirely valid.
Yeah. So true. But he was very supportive. He I don't know how he really felt, but he was he didn't give me a true hard time about it. So but that was, keeping that on the download was tough. But when they tell you not to tell anybody, I think that's important not to, hold that to myself. So immediately though, I contacted him. I was like, so when am I going to speak? What's my responsibility? And he names off, you're going to speak at the Alamo first. I'm going, oh Lord. Then I would go to San Jacinto the Massacre of Goliad. We spoke at the Presidio after that. The Masonic Oak, San Jacinto, and Come and Take It, and then the Grand Oration. So that's a handful right there. These aren't just little bitty mail-in speeches. They've got to have some substance to them. I mean, you're speaking in front of a substantial crowd. And so I went to work on those. And it's so funny how, speaking in front of lodge is, there's some nerves to that, but thinking about speaking in front of the Alamo for the Masons of Texas, that racked my nerves quite a bit.
No pressure, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, there's no pressure to that because, you like to think that you can put something together coherent and speak in front of your brothers, and be somewhat entertaining. But this is in front of people from across the state and all that. Now, mind you, the Alamo, we were still under restrictions when all this planning was going on. So Brother Billings, most worshipful now, he's right worshipful then, called me and he said, hey, look, the Alamo's not going to be a big deal this year. The COVID still, everything's on lockdown, but we have to do something in order to hold our place. So there's going to be about 15 of us down there. We're going to set up in the courtyard. You can give your speech and then we'll break and go back. So it was going to end up being a very small, just a placeholder event. Still was going to be special for me because I was speaking on the grounds of the Alamo. So I wasn't planning to mail it in by any means. And man, the weekend before the Alamo speech, they lifted the COVID restrictions. So we go down there thinking it's just going to be about 15 of us. I think there ended up being 500-600 people gathered around. It was phenomenal. That ended up being a great day because there was some miscommunication where I had two speeches ready for the Alamo, and I ended up being able to give them both and help lay the wreath. Just crazy, bone-chilling awesomeness that day. Speaking at the Alamo on behalf of the brothers. It was great because you look up and there was about 30 or 40 of us there, when it all began. And by the time the whole ceremony was over, as I said, I think 500 or 600 people. I mean, they were everywhere watching the ceremony. So that was a fantastic day. The day before, though, I gave a speech at Rising Star. The Grand Master had an official visit there and they asked me to speak. So I gave an oration about the connection of Texas Rangers and Masonry, which ended up the brothers there loved, and we've developed such a great relation. I'm now a member of Rising Star Lodge and a member of their degree team, which is the unofficial Texas Ranger degree team. I don't know if we could say official, but we've dubbed ourselves as the Texas. We wear vests and starched white shirts and look real sharp and do great degree work. So that was a special moment as well, developing that relationship with those guys down there in Center Point. It's just west of San Antonio. And actually, I'm going with those guys to Georgia next month. What is today? It's in April. That we go up to Dallas, Georgia to do a degree in their jurisdiction on the Texas Mason. The dispensation's all in work, but we're, from what I understand, their Grandmaster will be there. Our Grandmaster will be there. It's going to be fantastic time that all came about through being appointed as Grand Orator and traveling around. So that was a great weekend. Next big event, like I said, was the speaking at Goliad, which I'd never been to. Have you guys ever been to the Presidio there in Goliad?
No.
You got to check it out. It's definitely one of those things that just kind of gets skimmed over, because you got the Alamo right before it. And I mean, it kind of, that event kind of overshadows the Goliad event, which I enjoyed much more. It's a small town, a good, it's got that good small town feel to it. And the Presidio itself is just a powerful structure to be in. When we walked around, they had the reenactors going on and all that kind of stuff. It's a huge event. So there's a lot of cool things going on, but you walk in that chapel where they were holding 400 plus Texians captured in there before they were massacred. And it looks like it might hold 60 people in there. And you start thinking there was 400 plus locked in this thing. You're talking about elbow to butthole. I mean, I told my wife, I said, could you imagine the smell?
Oh God, everybody having fought for days and stuff and just walking close proximity.
Yeah, and locked in there for days. It's not like they were letting you out for bathroom breaks, It was so surreal. Still getting a little bit goosebumpy thinking about it. Because, I mean, nobody in there was talking. It's a very somber moment. And you can just feel that presence. Because you walk right out and you can look around the corner of the Presidio and see the mass grave, the hump, with the mass grave of all those people buried there. And it's like, yeah, dang. I don't know if Texas would be Texas without that event, but it's one of those things that's just tough to process. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But again, fantastic event to go be a part of. And Goliad, the town, my goodness, it's so much fun. It's a little town with a lot of cool history to it. So definitely recommend that.
That sounds like a great time.
Yeah, my wife and I thoroughly enjoyed it because we'd go to these little events in towns and get there early, the day before and drive around and look at all the old houses, find the local diner, not the McDonald's or whatever, and eat with the locals and have, great time. We did the Masonic Oak next down in, God, I can't even think of the name. It's just south of Houston.
Brazoria.
Here we go. Goodness gravy. Yeah, you would think I'd have that down. Which that's another one, man, that I just never had. I've always wanted to go to, but never went. And the Masons of Texas have a great little park down there for the family to enjoy. It's got a covered place to eat. So if it's raining, which it was when we went, I mean, buckets. It was raining buckets.
Yeah, I was there for that day. Yeah, it poured like crazy.
That's right. You were, yeah. And how about the freaking boiled shrimps? Weren't those the bomb.com?
Yeah, and it was cool to the Masonic Oak, by the way, for most people don't realize in that little area, it's not there. It's actually across the street. But it's cool that when you're talking, you can actually see it.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to pick out because there's like 8 or 9 oaks in there that look 200, 300 years old, so it is kind of hard to pick out which one was which. But that was another great event because the Grand Master picks out who he wants to honor a past Grand Master, and I write the oration for it to honor a past Grand Master. And I got to write about Jack Hightower, past Grand Master, and I'd heard the name before, but I didn't know the man. And it's so neat to dig in on somebody, just a random person, past Grand Master, of course, and get to know him, as personally as you can doing research and stuff like that. Because I talked to mentees of his, friends, some family, looked through all of his records as Grand Master, and this guy was an amazing man, to say the least. And it's something I would have never done without that position of orator. So it was another one of those moments that was just, felt privileged to be a part of it.
Yeah, it sounds like it became a very it sounds like that official position ended up advancing you a lot in your own personal journey.
Oh, that's an understatement. Yeah, that's an understatement, because I dug in so deep on it, and took so much advantage of it, which I'll kind of touch on that here in a minute because I had these official duties, but I pimped that position out and got in doors that I wouldn't normally have got in to present in lodges all across the state. But the next event that we went to after the oak was San Jacinto. And normally this is done at the Masonic Memorial that's right by the battleship down there. I don't know, again, if you've ever been to the San Jacinto Monument, which I never had. Didn't know much about it. I knew it was an obelisk, kind of like the Washington Monument. That was about it. And it was somewhere near Houston, which, man, you go driving in there and you're driving into like Exxon where all the refineries are. It looks like a scene out of RoboCop. All these pipes running everywhere, flames burning in the air. It looks futuristic. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here's the San Jacinto Monument right in the middle of all of it. So that was kind of unique. But that year in particular was the first year they allowed us to do the memorial on the steps of that obelisk, the actual San Jacinto Monument.
That's so cool.
Dude, I'm telling
And
you.
I love the monument. It's just so impressive. Last time I was down in Houston, I got to go see it, and just how neat. And to be able to do that right there, holy cow.
Yeah. No, that's one of my favorite pictures that my wife took of me giving the oration there and that monument right behind me. And it's like, who would have ever thought some knucklehead kid, struggled all through school, and class clown, the whole 9 yards. Here I am with a picture of me giving an oration for the Masons of Texas in front of the San Jacinto Monument. It's a treasured photo of mine. It's kind of like that moment when it finally really sank in of the whole gravity of, guys like Jewel P. Lightfoot were past Grand Orators. That was no small role to fill. You know what I'm saying? And I felt the gravity after that's for sure. But you're right, that monument's unbelievable. I had no idea. It's that's a 9-pointed star on top. So no matter what angle you look at it, you see a 5-pointed star. It's crazy. The advances in engineering that had to take place to build that thing is phenomenal, because it is the tallest monument in the United States, which that wasn't what was approved, but that's what was built. Yeah. So that was great. The last historical oration that I gave was the Come and Take It. And my wife and we enjoyed all of them. Don't get me wrong. Every one of them we enjoyed. The Riverwalk, all that's fun. But Gonzales and Come and Take It, if you've got family with kiddos, that's a must go. We had a blast. That was the one in October. They do a whole festival. Everything, basically, the whole square shuts down. We stayed up Friday night, the night before, listening to bands play all night. We ate boudin balls until we were nearly sick, and then had like some fried Snicker or something like that. Dude, it was gluttonous. But they had the crafts set up, where it was like a big fair. So my wife, she bought some shirts. I got me a Come and Take It, shirt and hat and all that good stuff. But that was a ton of fun. After the actual event, we did tours of old homes, and that's a good family Masonic event to go to. And even if you don't have kiddos, because we didn't take ours and we enjoyed ourselves. That's one definitely we ought to road trip and go check out. The Grand Oration, that one was there's no doubt that was special, but it wasn't as big a moment for me as those historical observances. and it was the one that I was looking forward to the most, the Grand Oration. And after it was all done, it was like, yeah, that was cool. But that wasn't, like speaking at the steps of the Alamo or saying just, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That gravity of that whole moment wasn't as heavy as I thought it was going to be. And don't get me wrong, it was big, and it was, but maybe it had a lot to do with the state of mind I was in, because that was just like a month and a half after I'd lost my brother, and I was still kind of reeling from all that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that luckily I had that Grand Oration written, because man, it's like things just, after he died in his motorcycle accident, you kind of lose track of everything for a minute. And so I was lucky I had that already down, and, basically just had to practice it, which, that's the whole thing about that too, because you're under time constraints. Do you know how many words you speak in a minute?
I guess it depends on who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to know that kind of stuff as an orator. So when they say, hey, you got 15 minutes to fill, you fill 15 minutes. So that took me a while because I would record myself giving these speeches, and at one point, it'd be a certain time, and then another it would be, so you eventually had to find your niche, if you will, and your speed, and stick to it. Because if you got up there and you were nervous, which and you can go back and look at my orations from the beginning and how much I slowed down from, the Alamo speech to my Grand Oration. And it's quite significant. I think I dropped like 25 words a minute, which is not, it's not that easy to do, but it makes for a much better speech when it is that right speed. Because if it's going too fast, ain't nobody understanding you or hearing you or anything. I think if we're going to talk about highlight for that year, though, it's undoubtedly the letter, which I know you guys heard a few times, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And we're going to do an episode of that, kind of dedicated to that on a separate podcast. But to just kind of give you the rundown, that was it. It was dubbed the letter, and it was written in World War I by a brother, Leon Culberson, about performing the death rites on brothers who had died in a battle, one of the last battles of World War I. It was the battle at Blockmont, or commonly referred to as the Forgotten Victory, because they got their butts handed to them. And then nobody likes to admit it, but that was guys just got laid to waste by German machine gun fire. We ended up winning the battle, but it was a devastating cost. And
so like a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, it was. And it actually is used now in teaching military and what not to do, which speaks a lot to those men's grit. You know what I mean? They were screwing up all over the battlefield in every way possible and still won the battle. So those were some bad dudes, man. But he wrote a letter about performing the death rite, the Masonic death rites on the brothers on the battlefield where they fell. And ooh, man, you talking about emotional. It's an emotional, just bomb. So that I took that thing, what was close to 13,000 miles is what I ended up clocking for just the letter.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I went to El Paso, all over Houston. And a matter of fact, I go there next Tuesday to Katy Lodge, I think. It's in Katy. But I took it to San Angelo, West Texas, El Paso. Oh my God, that was so much fun. Dude, El Paso's so awesome. You got to go check that place out. The Franklin Mountains were phenomenal. The Guadalupe Peak out there, just whew.
Oh, I love El Paso.
Yeah.
Last year, Last year I had the privilege of being a speaker for the Grand Chapter at the York Conference circuit.
Mhm.
And somebody was like, well, are you going to make it out to El Paso? We understand if you can't. And I'm like, I'm going to go to El Paso. I haven't been. I want to go.
Yeah.
No regrets. It was a fantastic experience. Hospitality was amazing. People were always, it was so nice the entire time, and the scenery was cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, it was a neat place to be. And I'll be going back in May for because this time I'm going to be speaking as for the Grand Commandery.
Yeah.
So yeah, super excited. Love El Paso.
No, and you say hospitality, and it is because they don't get a lot of visitors from around the state. From our state, they have a great relationship with New Mexico and Mexico because they're right there. Um, but when I went, it was red carpet all the way. And great hospitality. Of course, one of our past masters is out there. Is how it was kind of the genesis of it. How I ended up out there. Mark Crockett is a secretary of the Lodge Taft Diaz out there. But man, I can't wait to go back. We were up on the observatory point where you overlooking the city on the Franklin Mountains the city had it carved out, and you can go up there and watch the sunrise, and it is awesome, man. Very spiritual moment. So that was a blast, man. The letter, taking that around, because that's where I really used the position of Grand Orator to my advantage, because I knew what I had in this letter was special, and I felt obligated to share it with the brothers. Like, I didn't believe in the coincidence that I was Grand Orator and this came into my hands at the same time. So I felt like it was my duty to take it around the state. So I would email and call lodges and be like, hey, yeah, I'm Grand Orator. Do you mind if I come speak at your lodge? And they'd be like, sure, I guess. And I'd go present the letter, which grew over time, and man, it was such a blast because it was so well received. I mean, it's just such a powerful, powerful presentation, which if you want me to come do it, holla at your boy. I'm still going around the state with it. So, and love doing it.
And listeners, if you haven't heard Rhit deliver the letter before, it is really something. It's a moving experience. The content is phenomenal. It'll inspire you. And it's heart-wrenching all on its own, standing on its own merits. But when Rhit delivers it, he takes it to the next level without dramatics or theater, and gives it all the respect it's due. So he's not exaggerating anything, but there's just such a sense of passion and love when Rhit reads this letter. It'll take you to your knees.
No, man, it's an orator's dream. There's no doubt. That guy that wrote it, Leon Culberson, he was a well-educated man that went through something absolutely horrible, and I don't know what's a proper way to say it, but helped cope with it by writing that letter to his brothers. And it comes across that way. You definitely, after you read it or hear it, you're like, yes, battle and war is horrible. It's nothing fun about that. But he did burial rites. So when we got the letter, which come to find out, it's on display at Grand Lodge. It has been secured in the the record books, which we didn't realize. We've all found that out since then, but we didn't know the guy, because he mentions an anchor from Captain Lodge, a captain from Anchor Lodge. Listen to me, an anchor from Captain Lodge. A captain from Anchor Lodge and here in Texas, that they were at his grave doing the burial rites for all the Masons that fell on the battlefield, but specifically at his grave. And we discovered who that was through some research and kind of verifying names, cross-referencing military and Masonic records. And come to find out, it was Brother Ira Ogden, who was another well-educated, phenomenal man, very well connected Robert Marshall actually sent me a picture of his dad and President Taft laying, Ira Ogden's father and President Taft laying the cornerstone at a church that he was rewiring in, I think it's San Antonio. Yeah. So phenomenal story. Love to come check it out. But the whole culmination of that position, because I've been thinking about it a whole lot, about what an honor and privilege that was. And, I can't wait to get my copy of the Grand Lodge proceedings. And I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin. Have you seen that, Billy?
Yeah.
When he gets the phone book and he sees his name in the phone book.
Yeah.
Dude, that was one of my favorite parts. My brother, both, and I were huge. That was one of our very favorites, and we loved that part. And I think about it every time when I get that, to go back and look. See me in the proceedings. My name. But what a privilege, and without Freemasonry in my life, I would have never had that opportunity to try to, as I like to think of it, bend the arc of morality towards good. And, whether I did that or not, it gave me the opportunity to put that effort forth to try to do that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, because like ultimately you had an opportunity to do the best you could, and you did everything you could with it. So I feel like that's the best possible outcome.
Yeah. And I mean, what other group, what other organization out there in society gives you that opportunity as a volunteer? I mean, there's a lot of charities out there that do a lot of good, but this, for self-improvement, there's nothing like it, man. There's nothing like it. And it's just, I mean, because I'm a different man from then to now. There is no doubt about it. I mean, it was like the hyperbolic chamber from Dragon Z of self-improvement. It was like 7 years in one, you know what I mean? Of that year.
That is a hell of a reference. Wow. I'm just gonna, audience, dear listeners, if y'all didn't think we were king nerds of the Nerd Mountain, there's your proof right there. Wow. And it's like, and I'm not ragging on Rhit for that reference. In fact, I understand it and I love it. But wow.
It was such an honor. I mean, because it was like riding the coattails, man, of all the work that these trustees put in, and all the past hoopahs of the Grand Lodge that created these events and these traditions for us to take part in. And here I got to be center stage for just a small moment, with hardly any of the responsibility. It was just, man, it was awesome. I would recommend it to anyone. Such a blast. Well, let's talk about some news. Let's drop some news on these fools, because we've been pretty inconsistent with the podcast, but I think we've got ideas to make that change.
Right. And there was a large number of factors leading to podcast consistency level dropping. We never lost the passion for the podcast. We've always enjoyed doing the podcast, but as happens with Masonry, certain other things sometimes get in the way. And so this is kind of hopefully a return to form. Rhit, do you want to tell us about the format changes that will be occurring?
So I'm sure our regular listeners will know we've grown in host. On the last episode we did, before the Poke run-in, the one before that about the Grand Launch resolutions, there was 6 of you guys on that episode, and it gets a little chaotic when you have that many cats on there, which this is what we wanted. We wanted interest. We wanted this to perpetuate, because we knew we would get busy in our Masonic careers, and it just wouldn't be something we could keep up with on a regular basis. So things are going as planned. It's just hard to keep up with. So What we're going to do now is take those, myself included, make 7 hosts. We're going to bust those up into teams and have 4 different shows, each kind of having their own little niche. And I don't really like saying that because I don't want to restrict anybody on any of our shows, but they will have a generally a more focused topic.
Yeah, let's go with they're not restricted to anything. They just have a that special interest around which a lot of other stuff will circle.
There you go. Yeah. So and the whole idea behind this was many hands make light work. So if we're all pumping out if we've got 4 teams and we're all pumping out an episode a month, that gives us 1 a week to put out to you guys. So hopefully things go as planned and we get more consistent. We should, because the breaking these up and having our own interest in masonry, covering our own interests, should help motivate us to keep this ball rolling. And we're going to try to keep them more manageable, because the Grand Lodge resolution episode, I know post editing it was 3.5 hours. Before editing, I think it was longer than that.
Golly, it was a beast of an episode.
Yeah, so that got a little out of hand. And then you come right back to the poke run-in, which is what we're shooting for. That was, to me, that's how an interview should be conducted. That's how I would like to see our podcast, because that was action-packed, man.
Yeah, and a lot of that is poke, right? He's a great interview subject, right? And that actually kind of leads us to the first of our subcategories, right?
Mm.
So first of our subcategories is going to be we're still going to have the main podcast, the Fort Worth Masonic podcast, right? But we're going to split up into a subcategory there, the Fort Worth Esoteric Masonic podcast.
Yep.
And that will be myself and Billy Hamilton. And that'll be, primarily interview based, although not restricted to such. And it'll cover the gamut from, everything from symbolism to, other esoteric orders to, the deeper theorizing of what's going on in the fraternity.
Yeah.
Because Billy and I are, and remember, guys, king nerds of Nerd Mountain, right? and Billy and I are wired very esoterically. We love all that nerdy stuff. We can get totally lost in the sauce when it comes to, Kabbalah and Rosicrucianism and alchemy and all this other stuff. And so we're going to take that opportunity and kind of dive down and get weird. And I'm sure y'all will love it, or at least I hope y'all will love it.
Yeah.
And it will also kind of highlight too that masonry really is kind of the wellspring for a lot of different organizations that have kind of sprung up for it. So it's a good way to kind of explore those and see how masonry has led to the creation of a lot of other stuff.
If you want to think of any esoteric tradition, any mystery school, even any like fraternity of any kind that has maybe some mystical bent to it, there were Masons involved, guaranteed. Like this is one of the few things that I'll say without dispute this is true. Right? And so there's a whole wellspring of stuff to explore.
Yeah, there is no doubt about it. That will give guys that are hungry for that kind of stuff a spot to go. Because, like I say, what we're doing now, the Fort Worth Masonic podcast, is still going to be here. I'm going to host that, and that'll cover all things Blue Lodge. And we will still have, when we cover the Grand Lodge resolutions, I know we're all going to come together and have our piece to say about them. But this will give us the opportunity to cover those topics in a more efficient manner.
And I guess something we should probably clarify, I think we may have mentioned it last episode, But something that we're doing here is, in addition to dividing the labor among teams, one of the things that we're also doing is we're doing a little bit of rebranding. um our earliest listeners might remember that we used to be the Fort Worth 148 podcast. And then we kind of wanted to clarify some stuff for people that were looking for Masonic podcasts. And we said, okay, we want people to find our podcast more easily if they're trying to find stuff about Masonry. So we called it the Fort Worth 148 Masonic podcast. And now we are dropping the number, right? We're still Fort Worth Lodge, right? And our number is still 148. But the podcast itself, we are rebranding as the Fort Worth Masonic podcast. And that is, the plan is to still have guys from Fort Worth Lodge manning the podcast and everything. And it's not going to leave the lodge, but it is something that hopefully it's a little bit more broad spectrum, right? We're not it's easier to say.
Yeah,
We're not throwing random numbers into the middle of the name. And it's also, kind of reflective of the fact that hey, we are from Fort Worth and we are broadly interested in Masonry in general. And so adding a lodge number in there, it's not a hard statement of, oh, this is about our lodge, but towards the goal, we have a goal and we're working towards it, and including a lodge number in our podcast name doesn't quite go towards that, because we're trying to go for something that is universally interesting to our listeners and that has a lot of bonus content for our Texas listeners. So hopefully that kind of explains if you noticed a change in your iTunes listing.
That's an eloquent way of saying that number was clunky in the title. It was just
a little
clunky.
bit.
It was just clunky. Well, and when it came to the rebranding of all this, because Fort Worth Esoteric Masonic Podcast, that's got a better role than Fort Worth 148 Esoteric Masonic Podcast. It started getting too long. So,
yeah.
And that even goes for the next one, the next subtitle, because we're going to be rolling out the Fort Worth Military Masonic Podcast. And that's going to be Evie Kirkendall and Sean Devon, who are both veterans, that are going to host that. And after, I always knew Masonry and the military had a connection, but after reading the letter and diving into that research and realizing how many veterans we have specifically in the state of Texas, because there's already a military culture in our state, and then you add Masonry on that, there's some great stories. I heard so many good ones.
I would say that since the dawn of Masonry, or at the very least for Masonry in the United States, but Masonry all over the world has a heavy involvement with military, but in American Masonry, it's pretty much inseparable from the military. And I'm not a veteran. There's I would say most Masons are not veterans, but it's a very veteran friendly fraternity, and you can't take the two apart from that. There's such a huge Venn diagram overlap there.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, our former Grand Treasurer, Archie Scott, Grand Treasurer's back. He's a multiple Purple Heart recipient. I think a triple Purple Heart from Iwo Jima, the battle in Iwo Jima in World War II. And he's still kicking, man. Wouldn't you love to hear that story? And that's just an example of, so much richness and stories that need to be documented. And this would be a great chance to start exploring those connections. And I can't think of two better guys to do it. I mean, when I think of military, I think of Sean Devon now.
I will fully say, one of the traditions that we've kind of started doing in the lodge after stated meetings or after degrees, we'll all go to this little English pub that's not too far from the lodge, and I like to play a lot of Irish rebel music while we're at the English pub, which that's a different story. But Sean and Evie will get to talking, and we've got other guys that are vets there too. But Sean and Evie are the ones that have the most flexible bedtimes, and so they'll stay late talking. And when I can, I love to sit and listen and just enjoy these crazy stories that they'll tell, because Evie's an Air Force vet and Sean is a Marine vet, and sometimes they do a compare and contrast kind of conversation that is very funny to listen to.
Wow.
So they can weave they can spin a great yarn.
Yeah.
And we're super excited for them to be able to jump off into this new adventure.
Yeah, there's just so much content for all of these for sure, but that one in particular I'm super excited about. There's just great stories to share. And then our last team, we're calling Fort Worth Labor to Refreshment. I dropped the Masonic out of that one because and you'll see in the intro for that podcast, I say in the intro that we talk about whatever we want. It may or may not be Masonic. I'm sure we'll figure out a way to tie it loosely to Masonry if we need to, but Jeremy Gwynn and Brandy Patton are going to host that one. It originally started out as, because those guys they know beer, they know how to homebrew beer as kind of that as the subject matter, but they had a great point. It's like, man, there's thousands of YouTube videos about that.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, and part of the relevant factoid here is that Jeremy and Brandy are both officers of the Mosla Shrine Brew Club. And so that is a shrine club that is specifically dedicated to home brewing. And so that's going to be a significant influence in their podcasting material.
Yeah.
I believe I might be wrong here, and Jeremy can correct me later, but I believe all the officers of the Mosla Shrine Brew Club are 148 Masons.
Man, I couldn't be happier with that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are doing killer things in New York, right? These guys are doing killer things in the shrine. That's what we need to be doing.
Yep.
You find your niche, you get after it, man. And they still come to lodge. They still help with degrees.
Yep.
They found their niche. So be on the lookout, guys. I know this episode we're going to pop it out pretty quick, and then I've got a few to follow up, and then hopefully we'll get that ball rolling with those 4 teams and be more consistent. We know we're going to be more consistent than we have been the last 6 to 8 months.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But hopefully we can get very consistent with this with the team we've got. So let's wrap this thing up and do our plugs. We got anything we need to plug?
I guess so. We've got this. We got this big event coming up in August. You may have heard of it. It's called Texas MasoniCon. So this is Texas MasoniCon 2022. It'll be Friday, August 19th, and Saturday, August 20th. So Friday, August 19th will be an evening affair, festive board, and I believe that we are holding the festive board in the Worth Commandery Asylum, or the Jacob F. Zern Memorial Asylum, which, how cool is that? You never get to do that. So want to get in on it? Get in on it. It's going to be really cool. We're releasing tickets for the festive board soon.
Yes.
And then the next day, that Saturday, is an all-day event, lunch included, and we're going to have a bunch of breakout speakers and some pretty noteworthy keynote speakers.
Yep. So let's drill down on festive board first, because you'd mentioned we're going to hold the festive board at the temple this year.
Yes.
In the Worth Commandery Asylum. That's where our keynote speakers have been in the past. Beautiful room. Billy actually set this precedence with it was your installation for
Worth Commandery, yeah.
For Worth Commandery. And man, after I saw the pictures, it was like, yep, we got to do this.
Yep.
And we are planning to top shelf this, which means it's going to be a little more than in the past. I think we landed on $100 meal ticket, right?
Yep, that was the price we landed on, and we
Yep,
promise that we'll deliver on that.
you got it. I know already the meal that we're planning, it's worth it.
Yeah. And something, for any listeners that are wondering, this is a pretty commensurate price for a festive board, because recently we've been seeing lots of, $70, $75, 90, 95. I saw a 110 festive board at one point. So we are, if there are any of you that maybe have some reservations about this being that being the price for a festive board, 100 is what I would call competitive in this market.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're gonna get a great meal. You're gonna get drinks with that for toasting, and we're gonna, every penny that we have, we're gonna sink back into this. There will be no profit. This is not a fundraiser for this event. So if we have a couple of dollars left over, we might buy, some table settings, or you know what I mean. We're gonna put it all back into the event.
When it comes to when it comes to Texas MasoniCon, Fort Worth Lodge has a very strong commitment to making it a net zero game, right? And I believe the first year that we put it on, we actually lost money on it. So,
which we expected. Yeah,
we expected, and that was totally acceptable, right? Like, it was one of those things that we said, we're doing this. It's not a fundraiser for us. It's not even about the lodge. We're just the guys that get to play host. And the experiences for the Masons that are geared towards this kind of education, right? And we want anybody that can to participate, right? So this is not a Texas event. This is just an event that happens in Texas. If you're from a jurisdiction that we recognize, please come on by.
Yeah. So it is Master Masons that we recognize. And the festive board is a great, if you can't make Saturday because you got something going on and you're in town, you can certainly come to the festive board, because if nothing else, our speaker is worth the money. Which you guys know who that is, right?
Yes, we do. Rhit, do you want to let them know?
I was asking you, so you would drop that bomb.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So our speaker for this year, he was previously on the schedule, but due to an inconvenient pandemic that occurred, we had to shut everything down. And he was kind enough to agree to come on with us again. And we will be having Chuck Dunning as our festive board speaker.
Yeah. And man, what a great guy. He supports us so
folks,
much.
It's going to be incredible. Yeah. Chuck is a stellar man and Mason, supremely knowledgeable about all sorts of stuff. He is going to bring a talk to the table that you're going to really love. We've had Chuck in the past. He was one of our first keynote speakers, and he consistently blows guys away. I mean, it's going to be a great experience.
No, and there's something about being a knowledgeable and all that kind of stuff, and can recall facts, but he's such a sincere guy and so personable that when he speaks, it's like something that you relate to and actually get engaged about. It's not like cool random facts. It's like an actual engaging. He's a good orator. He is a good orator. So that alone's worth the money itself. That's in the festive board. Then we get into Saturday, which we are currently at, what's the price? 65?
Yeah, I think I think the early bird special is currently at 65.
Yeah, I should know that.
Yeah, so because you're the one that set the prices. But yeah, so if you were there at Grand Lodge, you were able to jump in on the Grand Lodge communication special, which is something we do every time, right? If you buy your tickets at Grand Lodge, they're way cheaper compared to door. Right now we're doing the early bird special, and that'll keep going until a little while before MasoniCon, and at that point we hit door pricing, because we have to start charging door pricing a little bit ahead before the event, because it becomes more difficult to get meal counts and factor in for parking and for anybody that may need special accommodations, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in coming, please go ahead and buy the early bird ticket. It'll be cheaper for you, and it's better for us as organizers.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just to get the details out. That event registration will start at 8 a.m. The actual speakers will start at 9 a.m. Like Gabe said, we'll provide lunch and we'll give you plenty of time for that because we're going to have vendors there as well. I think that's a big part of the ambiance of the event. So if you know vendors, contact us because
or if you are a vendor,
exactly, contact us because that's a very nominal fee. We are very welcoming to vendors, and we get you set up. And it's a kind of a 2-for-1 deal because we're hosting the temple's hosting the officer leadership training as well. So that'll add another 150, maybe 200 people.
This is going to be a massive event.
Yes,
we are hoping to, and I guess it's kind of weird. You can't really count the guys who are attending leadership training in attendance, right? But as a general weekend, not just MasoniCon, we're hoping to more than double our previous attendance for MasoniCon. So, our goal is to have vendors, a ton of vendors show up and leave empty-handed of merchandise and full-handed of income.
Yeah.
We want y'all to sell your tables out, and we want this to be a success for y'all, and we want the guys that are there to spend money they don't need to spend on things they don't need to buy.
Well, and it is like the old used cars sell. Our loss is your gain, because it will be a lot more work for us to deal with that many people in the building as well. But we thought, man, it's just a perfect opportunity to combine these two events, and the officer leadership training will be doing their own thing on their own floors, but we are all going to come eat together. And so there'll be plenty of time for you to sell them on your products. It'll be a good time. So speakers, you guys ready for this? Because this has not been released yet. So this is coming straight to your ear holes first, listeners.
Yes. And we'll make announcements via Facebook and stuff, but you're only going to get this sneak preview through the podcast. Everything else is going to happen through our standard channels, as it were.
So, exactly. So I expect ticket sales to go through the roof after this list of speakers, because man, that is great, guys. One of us or all of us has heard these guys speak, and they are fantastic, and I'm sure many of you have as well. So our first breakout speaker is Brother Jack Harper, and you guys know more about him than I do. So you want to kind of elaborate on him a little bit?
Jack Harper is a past Grand Commander of the Grand Commander Knights Templar of Texas, and he is currently the Right Eminent Grand Generalissimo of the Grand Encampment, which means that he is in the elected leadership line internationally for the Knights Templar. So that's the third position from the top. So he's it's a total of 12-year line. So it's a long commitment.
Yeah, you go in with brown hair and come out gray.
Yeah, Jack's a very dear friend of ours, and he's been super fun to talk to about all sorts of stuff. He's extremely knowledgeable regarding all things Masonic, whether it's history or esoterica. Jack probably has an answer there.
Yeah, he's a past master of Texas Ledger Research. He's currently superintendent of the Allied Masonic degrees for Texas. Well, one of the 4 we have. He's chief adept for SRCF, and
he's in
several other.
He's in the Grand line for the Night Masons as well.
What area of the state's he from?
Well,
is it Houston?
Kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
So Jack started his journey out in kind of, I'm gonna screw this up here. I really am, but he was based out of Hillsborough for a long time, and he had his Grand Commandery in Waco, but he's a past commander of like 5 different commanderies, so it's not just that one area. Gotcha. And he is currently his current location is south of Houston.
Okay, gotcha. And we did an episode with him quite a few years back as well, if you wanted to dig back into the
It's a
early
pretty good
episodes.
episode.
That was a real good episode. That was the night he was in his car. Then the cops come up or something like, "What are you doing out here?" Because he's
Yeah,
getting bad reception.
he had pulled over on the side of the road to improve his reception, and the police decided to investigate, because at one point he goes, "Hey guys, give me a second here," and
That's
he
it.
just kind of we're he puts us on hold, and he was like, "Yeah, that was the police." What? So yeah, Jack's our first breakout speaker. Great guy, love him to death.
Yep. So number 2 is Dr. David Hill, which
Woo!
I think most of you guys know from the Austin area. If you don't, get to know him. Fantastic guy. I've heard him speak before, and I mean, he's fantastic. Super knowledgeable, very engaging. He's a lot of fun to hang out with too.
And super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like one of the nicest guys in Masonry.
Mhm.
And he was one of our guests as well, wasn't he? On
Yes, every one of these, I'm looking down the list we've had on the show. Every one of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So David, we had on at one point as well. I don't remember when that was, though. It's all running together. Then we've got the Waco Wizard. Isn't that his nickname, Robert Marshall?
That's a weird nickname to give
Dude,
somebody.
Me too. And I was like, I'll just call you History Bob, because that sounds
History Bob. Okay, that sounds just illegal. That just reminds me of Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons.
Sideshow. Well, it's better than Waco Wizard. I mean, we put wizard in something. It's like I go straight to dudes on horses and hoods.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can't call somebody a wizard in Texas. That doesn't go well.
Yeah, and even if you're talking about, like the old Dungeons and Dragons kind of wizard, he recently shaved his beard, so he no longer.
It's out. It's History Bob.
I know
it's History Bob.
He lost all his magic powers. He shaved the beard. Yeah, we love Robert to death.
Yeah.
Robert Marshall. Yeah, I don't think we actually said his name yet.
That's true.
Yeah, Robert Marshall is our next breakout speaker.
Great
guy.
No introduction needed. He's,
I mean, yeah. For those of you that know him, that have met him, no introduction needed. For our out-of-state guests, Robert is a consummate historian, super passionate about all things research, and has a really long-standing involvement with the Research Lodge of Kansas. So, just a fascinating guy in general.
No, and he's a fun orator as well, because he makes it engaging. And I know the last time at the Festa board that Waco held, he spoke, and it was very informative. But we also giggled a lot, if that's a Masonic term I can use. Giggling.
Oh no, that sounds like a Masonic offense. What are you doing having fun? That's not allowed in Masonry.
And then next breakout speaker is going to be the Hillsboro Heralder, as I called him. Justin Jones, who hosts the Masonic Improvement podcast. I'm sure, again, most of you guys have seen or heard him on his podcast or YouTube channel.
Yeah, Justin's got he's got a great thing going. He's been putting a ton of hard work into that podcast. He was on our podcast a long while back. I think he was one of our first guests.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're super happy to see where his journey has taken him, and where he's going from here.
No, man, it's been great developing a relationship with him, because that's where the letter came out of, was his lodge at Hillsboro. So on top of already things that we were connecting, on a Masonic and friendship level, that kind of brought our relationship to a new level as well. And it's just been great getting to know him. He's a true Texas asset to our fraternity. Our last breakout speaker is Brother Brad Kohenke, which I think a lot of people will recognize from the officer leadership training. He was an all-star of that for 7 years or so.
Yeah. One of the hardest working guys in the Grand Lodge of Texas. He's dedicated a ton towards educating our future officers, and he's just fantastically esoterically minded, super involved with the Scottish Rite down in San Antonio. Fantastic guy.
Yeah. No, and he's just motivating to be around. He kind of oozes that inspiration, and he's a fun guy to be around.
Mm-hmm. I think Brad is actually the only person on this list who I am not in the same lodge as. All of the speakers except for Brad are we share lodges somewhere.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's right. I was thinking, yeah, you're right. Uh, interesting. So there's our breakout speakers, 5 of those, and then our keynote speaker that we will have in the asylum is going to be Dr. Right Worshipful Jim Rumsen, who's serving his final year on the Committee on Work, and as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best orators in the state of Texas.
I have never seen him give a boring presentation or talk.
Yeah. He's presented
yeah.
in the past at MasoniCon, and I've seen him several times. And when he holds his forum and exams, they're always engaging, informative. I mean, everything you want from a good speech.
Yep.
So very excited about his being keynote speaker. So there you have it, guys. I mean, that right there, lunch and all those speakers, $65. That's a bargain, baby. It's a bargain.
It's truly a bargain. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this is something we're super excited about. We had, the past 2 years, we weren't able to hold a MasoniCon because of the pandemic. And this is our first year coming back from the pandemic, and we want to lean into it hard.
Yeah.
We are excited. We're ready to be back and treat things like normal again. And we want to go back to serving the Masons of Texas with education and fun and fraternity.
Some fellowship, man. Let's get some fellowship going.
Some of that good old fellowship.
Amen. All right, fellas, let's close this thing down. As always, if you guys want to contact us, hit us up at fortworth148.org or on Facebook at fortworth148. Maybe one day we'll be on Instagram and those other youngsters things.
We do have an Instagram. We just don't use it.
Yeah, we don't check it. So you can go check it out and tell us how cool it is. And
yeah. And for those of y'all that haven't heard, we do have a new website address. It's fortworthlodge.com. So both fortworth148.org and fortworthlodge.com will take you to our website.
Bada bing. It's much easier to navigate.
And if you want to learn more about Texas MasoniCon, we have a separate website for that. That's where we have all the links to buying tickets and stuff. TexasMasonicon.com. That's TexasMasonIcon.com.
There you have it, gentlemen. We're back. All right, fellas. Let's close this thing up. This is Rhit Moore signing off.
This is Gabe Yagish signing off.
This is Billy Hamilton signing off.